right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. It is November 12th, 2014, the day after Veterans Day. If it's the same in your world, then you're listening to a live show, and your questions are an important part of this show. So we invite you to call in to ask questions. The number is 622-9622. The questions would be legal questions, because your host is John Fuller. John is an attorney at the law firm of Fuller & Fuller here in Ocala. The other Fuller is his beautiful wife, Janet, and he's here right now to answer your questions. The show is called Legally Yours. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Larry, and good morning to the folks listening to us. And before we go any further, even though it's the day after Veterans Day, or as my father used to call it, Armistice Day, because he was a World War I combat veteran, we want to say, from Fuller & Fuller, we want to say a special thank you to all the men and women who serve our country and who have served our country. And what a special day it was yesterday. I drove by the Memorial Park, and I saw a fantastic crowd. I saw the airplanes, the old warbirds doing a flyover.
Isn't that amazing?
And it is truly heartwarming to see our country recognize the sacrifice that our young men and women make and have made throughout our society. We talk on this show about the legal system, the judicial system, how it affects us individually, how we relate to our government, and those types of issues. And the reason we're able to do that, and the reason we have those institutions that we can debate, we can criticize, we can disagree with, are because of the sacrifices that our armed forces personnel make every minute of every day. So we want to say a heartfelt thank you and best wishes to all of the men and women who are serving and who have served.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you ever have veterans that have veteran-specific legal issues that they need help with?
I really haven't so much. That's not something that has come across my desk very often. They are lawyers who specialize in military law and things like that, but it's an area where I want our country and our elected officials, at least from my personal point of view, to never be unmindful of funding benefits and seeing that these people have the resources that they need to be as safe as they possibly can when they go in harm's way. November 11th always had on a personal note, just to share with you and our audience, November 11th always had a very, very special meaning in our family from the time I was, as long as I can remember, because my father was in World War I, was a combat infantryman, had been in combat, had been pulled back for rest, and his company and battalion was going back into the front lines on November 8th, 9th, and 10th, because they were planning a big offensive of what they called in World War I going over the top, which meant you got out of the trenches, you ran across no man's land with barbed wire, chlorine gas shells being dropped in on you, and machine guns that would fire 800 rounds a minute. That the technology of that war had so outstripped the tactics. The generals were still a generation behind fighting that war, like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, or what have you, with wave after wave of soldiers marching into this lethal field of fire. And the technology was just so much ahead of the tactics that hundreds of thousands, in fact, a whole generation of French young men basically got wiped out in that war because of a lot of things, but the tactics. My father, as long as I can remember, we celebrated November the 11th like it was Memorial Day, the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, all rolled into one. Big party, fireworks. He always went all out because he was actually going forward when they got the news that at 11 a.m. on the 11th, they had signed a ceasefire, which was known as an armistice, and it was called Armistice Day for many years. Eisenhower changed it to Veterans Day, but my father always called it Armistice Day, and we celebrated it from as long as I can remember as a little kid. So,
that is an amazing story.
Yeah, I have one other quick amazing story. My godfather was a combat surgeon in World War I. He was a captain. He was at an advanced medical facility when a young soldier came in, had to have emergency surgery because a shell fragment had severed an artery or vein or something, and he had to open him up and go in and ligate it to keep him from bleeding to death. And while he was operating on him in this tent, he of course had a sterile field with gloves, gown, and mask. The Germans decided to start an artillery barrage, and the shells contained chlorine gas. And rather than break the sterile field and leave the young soldier to bleed out and put on his gas mask, he kept operating on him and saved his life, and lost 75% of his lung function to the chlorine gas that he inhaled. So I am very proud. I'm very proud to have in my possession his Purple Heart, his Silver Star that he got for that. They didn't give the Silver Star in World War I. They gave us a similar certificate, and then in the 30s or so, they converted it to be equal to what is now known as the Silver Star, and it's the third highest award the country gives for extraordinary heroism in the face of combat and armed enemy. So I'm pretty proud of that.
Wow, you should be. Wow, that is an awesome story. Well, the phone lines are open if you have a legal question.
Okay, I'm sorry if I talk too long.
No.
It ties in because everything we do in our judicial system flows from our forefathers and our people today who preserve it for us.
And you know, when you're looking for an attorney that you want to know a little bit about before you actually work with that person, it is good sometimes to know how they got to where they are. And obviously those two stories are part of you. I mean,
well, one of the things that I do see, and like I do a lot of work for people who are hurt in accidents, automobile accidents, serious injury, or what have you. And a lot of them who have been in combat, they suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is not some fiction. This isn't. It's been trivialized some in the press. It's an anxiety disorder. It's got its own diagnostic code in the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual that all mental health people utilize in forming diagnoses and categorizing it. And if you are in an automobile accident and you are predisposed to anxiety, depression because of your past life experiences, it can oftentimes make you more sensitive to trauma and that sort of thing.
You know, and we've got to take a little break, but my 2 cents on that is I've been in 2 wrecks. I hope I'm never in another one, but I've been in 2, and in both cases, it took me a full year. I don't know if this says something about me, but it took me a full year before I was absolutely comfortable again in a car. Not that I didn't get right back in.
Sure. Well, it says you're normal. That's what people go through.
But a full year is what I always say. And mine were actually minor compared to some people's. So we do need to take a little break. The phone lines are open if you want to call John. The number is 622-9622. Let me repeat that today is November 12th, and I'm telling you that because sometimes John can't be here, and so we do a rebroadcast of one of his other shows, his previously recorded shows. But today, if it's November 12th where you are, you're listening to a live broadcast, and the phone number is 352-622-9622, and we'll be right back with John after this.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. It'll be partly sunny today and pleasant this afternoon with a high of 76 to 80. Partly cloudy skies tonight, lows ranging from 52 in a few inland spots to 58 along the coast. For tomorrow, times of clouds and sun, the high 76 to 80. On Friday, times of clouds and sun and noticeably cooler with highs ranging from the upper 60s in the north to about 75 in the south. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Who would you feed if you had 50 chicken sandwiches from Chick-fil-A? WOCA and Chick-fil-A in the Paddock Mall have teamed up to reward one organization with 50 chicken sandwiches as a way of saying thanks for the great work that organization is doing in our community. And we need your help. See, there are so many great people doing great things that we need nominations. You can nominate your own organization or any organization you choose. Simply send an email to WOCA@WOCA.com. And in 350 words or less, tell us why the organization you are nominating should receive 50 free chicken sandwiches from WOCA and Chick-fil-A at the Paddock Mall. We'll review your nominations and then select one deserving organization each month. We'll announce the winner and even read the winning entry on the air. Make sure to include the contact name and phone number of the organization that you are nominating. And thanks from your friends at WOCA and Chick-fil-A in the Paddock Mall.
Keep up with what's going on in the downtown area with Ocala Downtown Newspaper. Delivering thousands of newspapers to businesses in the downtown area, Ocala Downtown is there to keep you informed. They even have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask in return is that you tell them where you heard about it. It's simple. For more info, just call Tom's Picks, 352-804-1223, and pick up your copy of the Downtown Ocala newspaper today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
All right, 13 minutes before 11 o'clock. Again, today is November 12th, 2014. It's Wednesday. If you're listening to the live broadcast, you're invited to call John Fuller at 622-9622 to ask your question. We all will learn from your question. And it does not have to be related to what we've said so far. It's okay to change the subject.
I wasn't here yesterday, and so I wanted to always try to take an opportunity to express our appreciation. All the folks at our law firm are always mindful of that. And we do have a lot of clients, and I was saying, I think during the break, who have been in accidents and injured, and they have some pre-existing emotional conditions because of what they've been through. And we need to be sensitive to that, and our medical professionals need to be sensitive to that. And it's not always something that people feel comfortable about talking about. And so I say to the people I represent, listen, if you don't tell your treating physician about any pre-existing issues that may make you more vulnerable, more fragile, more susceptible to pain, to anxiety, to depression, they won't be able to effectively treat you. You won't have it in your chart, and I can't utilize it as your lawyer to explain it to a jury so that you can get full consideration for all of your damages. And mental illness or mental conditions that people incur and suffer are very hard to diagnose sometimes. You can't see it on an X-ray or a CAT scan like you can other things. And so it's a more subtle diagnosis, and it's something that is very real. And I encourage folks to get treatment, to be thorough in their conversations with their healthcare provider about what they're experiencing. And, we all arrive at where we are by being a product of the experiences we've had, both good and bad, in our life today. And, that's an important thing to keep in mind.
Are we limited by the dollar amount of our insurance? Are we, like, if you have $10,000 worth of, let's say you have $20,000 of medical bills,
Well, from a practical matter, if the person who is at fault who injured you does not have other assets or resources that you can get a judgment against and collect on, you may be practically limited by the liability limits because of, like my father used to say, you can't get blood out of a stone or blood out of a turnip, depending on whether you're from the north or south. But you definitely you don't have a cap on damages, in Florida. Now, there are some exceptions, pain and suffering and medical malpractice and things like that.
And you do have a phone call.
Very good.
Thank you for calling. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
See, my wife is an insurance agent, and every 2 years she's required to go back to school, take up some credits, some courses and credits to get her license back and recharge, more or less, I'll say. Are lawyers in kind of a similar situation where every so often you got to go back and get some credits in college or so on and so forth?
Every year. You have to have a certain number of continuing legal education credits, and if you don't get those every 5 years, the bar reviews that, and you have to have so many hours that you have acquired in that 5-year period. If you are board certified in an area of specialization, and in my case, I'm board certified in civil law, which is automobile accidents and those types of cases, and in business litigation law, I have 2 board certifications. There are greater requirements for continuing legal education credits that are specific in those areas that I have to have each year, and I have to recertify every 5 years. So it is a continuing learning process. The law is like a stream. It flows. It changes daily. We have 5 district courts of appeal in Florida and the Florida Supreme Court, and they interpret laws every day of the week and issue opinions that affect how those laws are interpreted and are to be administered. And then we have our illustrious legislature, which meets once a year and passes a bevy of new laws. Then on top of that, we have the bureaucracy that administers these laws, and they have rule writing authority, and we have the Florida Administrative Code, which has all of the regulations that have been promulgated by different governmental departments as a regulatory rule to enact the legislation. So it's a constant, ongoing process.
Can you take some of these courses or all of them on the internet, or are we talking a classroom situation?
Both. You can take seminars and classes on the internet, and then the Florida Bar, the Florida Justice Association, the American Bar Association, other organizations like that sponsor seminars, and they're usually held, usually Orlando, Tampa, Miami, or cities where they have large convention facilities where they can accommodate several hundred people, and they're 1 to 3 days long, and you go there and you basically sit in a classroom 8 hours or so, taking notes and listening to speakers, getting handouts of various materials or downloading them on your laptop, that sort of thing. And so you can do it both ways, and both ways count. I'm showing my age, but I find that I learn better when I have paper and pen, and I am listening to a live human being rather than sitting at my desk looking at a web production and looking at a written material on the website. It's very difficult sometimes to page from one page to another page and back and forth for me. I'm sure I'm just showing my lack of fluid technology with that. Everybody has to find their own way. Some people learn better by listening. Some people learn better visually. Some people, usually it's a combination, but you find what works best for you.
Yeah, well, my wife is something like yourself there, where she prefers the classroom contact with the teacher and so forth rather than being on the internet. So she, sometimes it's a little bit of a pain to go ahead and do it, but it's mandatory. But then when she gets through with the courses, she said, "I'm so glad I went because I learned this and I didn't know about that." And so it's an ongoing thing. It
is essential and all of that. I will also say, just to go ahead and put this out there. It's expensive. There's one seminar that I go to every year in January, and just the admission to the seminar is $850.
Wow.
That doesn't count your hotel room, because it's 3 days in Orlando, and meals and that sort of thing. So it's not an insignificant cost. And then the printed materials cost more on top of that.
Yeah.
So it's very easy that one trip will cost $1,000, $1,500 or more. But it is worth the money. You can take 3 days and be brought up to speed on the latest developments that have occurred and are occurring.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you. The phone line is open if you'd like to call John, 622-9622. Just going back to the veterans part of how you started today. If somebody, just before you, we had the higher education folks in here, and they were talking about veterans benefits for education. Would you, if let's say a veteran had an accident, let's say, and you were representing him for that, could they, and let's say the accident maybe caused them to, maybe it was going to handicap them as far as their ability to have work from that point on. Could the legal system help them become whole as much as possible?
Well, if you're injured, the legal system can only help make a person whole in the sense of a lawsuit or a claim if your injury and damages are caused by the negligence of someone else. If no one is negligent and you hurt yourself,
I got you. So you have
there is nothing to do. I mean, if you climb up on your roof to fix a gutter and you don't have really good coordination and you just fall off, and there's nothing wrong with the ladder and there's nothing wrong with the shingles, you just got clumsy and fell off and hit your head on the driveway, had horrible injuries, large medical bills, lost wages, all of that, there's nothing you can do. You have to have a negligent party.
So veteran or not, you got the same rules.
Well, now what you get with your veteran benefits is a separate matter. I'm not an expert on VA benefits.
And you do have another phone call. Thank you for calling and for waiting. You're on the air with John Fuller.
Yes, got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
If I happen to get negligent at the hospital, how long I have to bring the case to court?
You would think that would be a simple answer, and once upon a time it was a fairly straightforward answer. The legislature has crafted a unique set of laws for medical malpractice that provides a lot of extraordinary protections for doctors and hospitals that average citizens who are negligent do not have. So the short answer is you generally have 2 years from the date you know or should have known that you suffered some type of an injury as a result of medical negligence. Having said that, let me caution you, large capital caution you. You need to consult with a lawyer about it, because there are other things that need to be done during that 2 years, before the expiration of that 2 years, and if you don't do them in a timely manner, you'll get to the end of the 2 years and you won't have enough time left to get them done, so the statute of limitations will bar your claim. It's a minefield that one has to tiptoe through very carefully, and so I don't want to give you any misinformation or a short answer, and it differs from state to state. So if you were operated on or had treatment in another state, you need to check with a lawyer in another state, because the statute of limitations definitely are different from another state.
Thank you for the call. We're just out of time, so I had to cut him short.
Absolutely.
What is your phone number, John?
Our office number is 352-547-4292. Toll free, 855-534-2565.
Thank you, John. As always, for the listeners, call us if you need that repeated. And, of course, share the video with your friends and share the information. We'll be right back. This is WOCA Ocala.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. Republicans increased their majority in the Senate, picking up an 8th seat from Democrats in Alaska.
About 8,000 votes separated Republican Dan Sullivan from Democratic incumbent Mark Begich. And now that race has been decided after they've gone through some of the outstanding mail-in votes and some of the early vote results. And ultimately, the results weren't all that close. 49